Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most profound systemic shifts proposed in Indian politics right now. It's a strategic analysis of one nation, one election. We're going to break down the hidden mechanics, the tangible benefits, the staggering logistical hurdles, and the deep constitutional debates surrounding this proposal. And as always, we're keeping our analysis strictly impartial. To really grasp why this reform is even on the table, we have to look at the real-world problem it's trying to solve. Imagine a country where the governance pause button is slammed down at least every 3 months. Because India is just so vast, there's almost always an election happening somewhere. And whenever elections are called, the model code of conduct kicks in. Practically, this means no new substantial policies can be declared. Major infrastructure projects get delayed, everyday citizens end up waiting longer for vital welfare schemes, and key policy decisions just freeze. At the center, in the states, and at local levels. It's this perpetual cycle that constantly interrupts the flow of actual administration. So what exactly is the proposed fix? Well, one nation, one election centers entirely around conducting simultaneous elections throughout the entire country for both the Lok Sabha, that's the lower house of parliament, and all the state assemblies. The voting would happen completely in sync, either on a single day or within a really tightly compressed, specific time frame. Here is our master framework for this concept mastery session. We'll track the perpetual election cycle, examine the COVID committee's roadmap, analyze the governance dividend, confront the logistical hurdles, unpack the federalism debate, and then tie it all together with a final concept revision. So let's start right at the foundation, the perpetual election cycle. Frequent elections absolutely allow voices to be heard, but they also lock the nation into a constant state of campaigning. To address this continuous disruption, we need to look at the proposed blueprint for reform, the COVID Committee Roadmap. The historical context here is actually fascinating. Simultaneous elections aren't some new, untested idea. They were actually the historical norm in India all the way up until 1967. After decades of staggered disruption since then, a high-level committee chaired by former President Ram Nath Kovind set out a new roadmap. They proposed a two-phase synchronization strategy. Phase 1 synchronizes the Lok Sabha and state assembly elections. Phase 2 then tackles the local municipal bodies. And that brings us to a really critical number, 100. Under Phase 2 of this plan, elections for local municipal bodies absolutely must be held within 100 days of the general elections. This is designed to ensure the entire country wraps up its democratic process in one condensed season, rather than dragging it out over several years. But how do you actually implement a systemic change this massive? It's not easy. First, the Constitution of India has to be altered. We're talking about amending 3 separate articles and inserting 12 brand new subclasses, plus tweaking laws for union territories. Second, the Election Commission has to prepare a single, unified electoral roll for all elections, which would save tremendous time and money. Third, and this is a big one, while amending the Constitution for general elections doesn't require state ratification, altering the structure for local bodies requires at least 50% of the states to formally ratify the change. If they can pull off this massive shift, what's the actual reward? Let's analyze the tangible benefits, which we can call the governance dividend. These impacts are deeply interconnected. Economically speaking, combining elections drastically reduces the sheer financial burden and curtails that constant stream of populist freebies. On the governance front, administrative efficiency skyrockets because the model code of conduct isn't constantly freezing policy implementation. And crucially, look at the security impact. Simultaneous elections free up massive numbers of armed police and paramilitary forces to focus on critical internal security challenges, like anti-Naxal operations, rather than being stuck on perpetual poll duty. Plus, it has the potential to reduce the continuous social polarization that endless campaigning often stirs up. But of course, rebuilding a democratic engine of this size mid-flight is not all smooth sailing. We have to confront the immense logistical and democratic hurdles. The physical hardware requirements alone are staggering. Currently, a single electronic voting machine and VVPAT set is used at each polling station. To conduct simultaneous elections, the Election Commission of India would literally need to double its supply. Every single polling station would suddenly need 2 complete sets, one for the State Assembly, one for the Lok Sabha. And doubling those machines triggers a massive logistical chain reaction. You instantly need a significantly larger pool of polling staff to manage both sets simultaneously, creating a huge recruitment and training bottleneck. Then, coordinating the secure transport of twice the equipment becomes exponentially more complex. You need heightened central police forces to secure these dual electoral processes. And finally, the Election Commission already faces difficulties just storing EVMs securely post-election. Doubling the inventory creates a massive shortage of highly secure storage facilities. Then there is the constitutional feasibility dilemma. Articles 83.2 and 17.2 stipulate that the Lok Sabha and state assemblies last for 5 years unless they're dissolved earlier. So, what happens if a central or state government collapses mid-term? Does the entire country have to vote all over again to maintain the synchronization? Or is president's rule just imposed until the next cycle? The mechanics of handling a premature government collapse remain a really profound structural hurdle. Beyond those logistical nightmares, we arrive at the core ideological clash at the heart of this policy, the federalism debate. Critics of the proposal argue that the very idea of one nation, one election contradicts the foundational notion of federalism. They point directly to Article 1 of the Constitution, which explicitly envisions India as a union of states. The main argument here is that treating the entire nation as one single, simultaneous voting bloc fundamentally undermines the distinct identities and the unique political cycles of individual states. So it becomes this incredibly delicate balancing act. On one side, national efficiency offers focused governance and less disrupted administration by consolidating national and state issues. But on the other side is regional accountability. Recurrent elections actually allow voters to have their voices heard more frequently, which keeps legislatures constantly in check. Because the underlying issues of national and state polls are often totally different, the current staggered framework prevents those issues from blending together. The real concern is that in a synchronized system, massive, dominant national issues might just overshadow and dilute crucial regional interests. And here's a really surprising economic counter-argument from the source material. While we just discussed the high cost of frequent elections as a negative, there is actually robust economic research suggesting that massive election spending by political parties and candidates isn't entirely bad. It actually acts as an economic stimulus. It boosts private consumption at the grassroots level, which subsequently increases the government's tax revenues. It adds a fascinating layer of complexity to the whole financial argument, doesn't it? All right, let's cement this framework into your visual memory with a quick final concept revision to ensure complete mastery of the topic. Here is your rapid 30-second recap. Frequent elections mean the Model Code of Conduct acts as a continuous policy pause button. To fix this, the COVID committee proposes syncing national and state polls, followed by local bodies within 100 days. But this requires amending 3 constitutional articles and securing massive logistical upgrades, literally doubling EVM hardware. Ultimately, the core debate centers right on Article 1, whether this push for efficiency undermines India's federal structure as a union of states. And that leaves us with the ultimate analytical question to ponder. Does the sheer administrative and economic efficiency of uninterrupted governance outweigh the democratic rhythm and regional accountability provided by frequent elections? It's a profound trade-off between a streamlined system and continuous voter checks. Thank you for joining this explainer. Keep analyzing the structures around you and keep learning.